Did you know that cushioned running shoes may actually amplify impact and loading on the body by repressing reflexes in the leg and feet? Did you also know that barefoot runners appear to be more mechanically competent in running with less impact forces on the body? As we know so well, much of the focus in terms of preventing impact-related injury in runners has been on increased underfoot padding in a running shoe, but researchers are finding out that an unintended effect of running in cushioned traditional conventional running shoes is that it may cause a runner to land more forcefully with greater loading, with greater push force, and more mechanical demands on the foot and leg during running, which means a potentially greater likelihood of injury. Several research groups have noted that many of the best distance runners in the world from Kenya and from Ethiopia spent many years running barefoot, which may have furnished their ability to run more safely, which may also explain the potentially low injury rate incurred among many East African runners, as they seem to compete in more events per year than many professional runners from shod populations. True that most of the professional distance runners from East Africa do run and compete in thick cushion running shoes, but the ability to run with less impact, and there's a name for this which I will discuss in a moment, may have been crystallized earlier on in life because of running barefoot. And from this, these runners may have retained much of the barefoot running related mechanics when they run in cushion running shoes. Anyways, in my last video, which is linked down below in the description box, I discussed the idea that one of the reasons most East African distance runners are so efficient in their running stride could be that the vast majority of these runners have a very high back kick or a faster withdrawal of the foot off the ground, which is one of the best aspects of their running style, because running with a higher back kick may help thrust and drive the body forward. It often equates to a higher step frequency or a step rate, which may translate into less force production on the foot. Even more important, it may help keep the brake force period shorter in duration and less forceful, which may help stave off many common running related injuries, as less loading is streamlined through the body. So why is their high back kick height often higher than that from runners of habitually shod populations? It could be that a high back kick of most East African distance runners was most likely shaped or is the direct result of having ran barefoot for so many years as young runners and even as adult runners, because many East African adult runners do run and compete barefoot. So it could be through barefoot running that enables these runners to have a more responsive, faster, effective, and efficient withdrawal reflex of the swing, leg, and foot during running, which involves a higher back kick height that may hold so much mechanical value in terms of running efficiency and injury prevention. This is why running barefoot is especially meaningful, especially if you are a shod runner who runs with a very heavy footfall and grapples with impact-related injuries as a consequence, because barefoot running not only sparks a higher back kick, helping shave off high brake forces, but barefoot running naturally enforces a lighter foot strike that results in less loading on the foot and leg. This is a key concept that really goes underappreciated, because barefoot running actually produces mechanics at the foot strike level that may be better for you, because barefoot running shifts threatening impact forces away from the body. This is why barefoot running has come to fill a very critical space from a therapeutic or a medical standpoint as an effective means to help expand a runner's capacity to avoid impact-related injuries. So let's look at the research that has proven that when you run barefoot, there's a transformational undertaking at the reflexive level that may result in less impact, less loading, and less chance of potentially getting injured. Work by Dr. Stephen Robbins, MD at McGill University, who is my favorite barefoot advocate, has done extensive research on the health benefits of barefoot walking as well as barefoot running, and his work not only gives a deeper picture and a realistic assessment on why running barefoot may be a safer option than shod running or running in shoes, his work also reminds us that barefoot running is a building block of developing what is called the avoidance behavior reflex. And it's this avoidance behavior reflex that specifically enables a barefoot runner to land lighter with less force engagement with the foot than a shod runner during running. This is the first time a researcher has really helped break down and verified the fundamental reasons barefooting most often encourages a significantly lighter footstep in the absence of underfoot cushioning from a running shoe. Dr. Robbins specified that this avoidance behavior reflex depends on plantar sensations, meaning ground feel at the foot, which are enhanced and enriched only when barefoot. That is the key point to really always remember. In simple terms, when you run barefoot, tactile sensory sensations from the bottom of the barefoot gets converted into electrical signals or impulses that zip through the nerves in the feet, ankles, knees, hips, spinal cord, and up to the motor cortex in the brain, which is the brain area mostly responsible for movement. From here, the brain can grasp the true feel of the ground. It can texturally distinguish softer versus harder or sharper surfaces under the bare foot, and then the motor cortex dictates exactly how the foot should interact with the ground based on the high-level tactile and sensory sensation from the bottom of the bare foot. Electrical activity from the motor cortex speeds down the spinal cord down to the foot and moves the feet and legs to make the best possible effort in prompting a landing strategy that feels the most comfortable, ultimately resulting in a less intensive landing fashion. This communication highway between the foot and the motor cortex in the brain is what makes up the avoidance behavioral reflex, which is, to its credit, helps a barefoot runner land with less footfall intensity than a shod runner. So this is how running barefoot may help clean up and lighten up a heavy foot strike landing via activating the avoidance behavior reflex, ensuring a lighter footstep in the absence of underfoot cushioning from a running shoe. The vital sensory resources optimized on barefoot running powers a lighter footstep, which can bring about dramatic impact reduction. Furthermore, one closer inspection of how barefoot running contributes to lighter, less forceful footfalls is that other research has found that the unloaded leg in barefoot runners showed greater hip extension, which indicated an activated withdrawal reflex, which in turn resulted in a quick, more rapid removal of the foot from the ground, which transformed into a lighter footstep engagement. This evidence suggests that collectively, the nerves in the feet transmit signals to segments in the lower body that are capable of producing a lighter, safer running experience. But if these segments of the body, including the motor cortex and the brain, cannot receive the signals that maintain a lighter, safer foot strike engagement, at minimum, impact may be produced in greater quantities. This is the neuroscience or neuromotor angle of how barefoot running may drive less abusive footsteps. What is more, Dr. Robbins revealed that the avoidance behavior reflex diminishes, weakens, or becomes less responsive when plantar proprioception, which means spatial awareness and spatial perception from the sensory input at the bottom of the bare foot. What this means is when the bottom of the barefoot is lacking the tactile or sensory stimulation, there becomes an absence of ground feel at the bottom of the barefoot. And the motor cortex in the brain cannot fully grasp how the foot should land on terrain that you are treading on, making it awfully difficult to effectively adjust, modify, and execute the most optimally safe landing intensity or landing strategy that results in reduced impact. This evidence points toward why many shod runners slam their foot into the ground with greater force intensity than barefoot runners, because running in cushioned running shoes fails to elicit the same sensory experience as barefoot running. This landing hazard of the foot in a cushioned running shoe is well documented in Dr. Stephen Robbins' research. He found that when sensory input at the bottom of the bare foot is repressed, silenced, or lacking, the body has a reduced capacity to effectively seek the natural behavioral reflexive response that deters high impact from the foot and leg, and that running shoes designed for high impact conditions do not fully properly modify injury producing forces at the reflexive level during shod running. This essentially means that when a cushioned running shoe is worn during running, the brain has very, very limited access to sensory information from the bottom of the bare foot. Information about how to land with less impact intensity. This information is dulled in a cushioned running shoe, and as a consequence, the avoidance behavior reflexive pathway is lost or is less effective at maintaining a lighter footstep, which in turn may cause dysfunction in motor function at the foot and leg, resulting in higher impact landings as compared to running barefoot. This is how cushioned running shoes do not really offer credible changes in improvements in impact-related injury in shod runners, and certainly this evidence reflects the unacceptably high injury rates in joggers who do wear protective footwear. Shoe cushioning may not be a good enough base to help sustain the avoidance behavior reflex to its fullest extent, and as a result, the foot presses much harder on the ground, putting a burden on the knee joint during running. That is really one of the central or general problems of conventional traditional cushioned running shoes that researchers are now beginning to highlight, and is a good reason runners shouldn't really place too much reliance on shoe cushioning for impact protection. The take-home message from all of this is that when the nerves in the feet shut down due to running in overly thick cushioned running shoes, so does the avoidance behavior reflex, and you might end up striking the ground much harder as compared to if you were to run barefoot. Not to mention, the injury epidemic in joggers has led to the hypothesis that less is more, which means less protection on the foot may equate to more protection from impact. Dr. Stephen Robbins brilliantly writes about this on his blog, which is also linked down below in the description box. The evidence Dr. Stephen Robbins has provided us really changes the whole channel that you need underfoot cushioning to run safely and avoid injury. And again, if you are a heavy-footed runner, make an effort to pursue barefoot running because it really does make your mechanics work better. You've got to excite the underlying nerves that light up and activate the avoidance behavior reflexive pathway that gives the physical basis to make the precise movements with the foot and leg to help set forth a softer, lighter landing strategy, and not so much jerky, erratic, forceful, uncoordinated movement patterns of the leg and feet that we so often see in many joggers who wear cushioned running shoes. For more information on the benefits of barefoot running, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please follow me on social media, where you will also get more updates on the performance and health benefits of forefoot running. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.